Long, long ago, the city of Venice was but a single hut, made of wattle and seaweed and daub, and a single boat beached on a solitary island. All around was the empty lagoon, the low horizon, the gray mirror of the water, the shrill-voiced seabirds, and the silent fishes. The hut was inhabited by a kindly old couple who took refuge on the island when the mainland was overrun by barbarian hordes. The couple lived on fish, the greens from their garden, and water that tasted faintly of salt. Their lives were very humble, and they would have been content except for their loneliness. Seldom did a day pass by when one or the other of them did not predict that surely soon the companions of their youth would follow them to the islands. They looked forward to that day as if it were a festival that had been promised them, and planned how they would celebrate and honor even the most disagreeable of neighbors. But the days passed and the years went by, and they saw no one, not the sail of a single fishing boat, until they wondered if some pestilence had swept the mainland shore, and if they were the last human creatures left alive. One winter twilight there came a great storm. The sky glowed crimson and then turned violet. High winds flattened the marsh grasses, and there were rough white waves on the lagoon. The lightning was so bright that the old people covered their eyes, fearing blindness. Then they shielded their ears from the deafening thunder. The heavens opened, and the rains fell in chilling sheets. Puddles and rivers seethed beneath the bolted door of the hut, and the fire on the hearth was drowned. The old man and his wife held one another closely and prayed that the storm would soon pass. The wind died to a whisper, and at last the old woman went and opened the door and looked out. The sky was filled with stars, and the light of the moon left a long silver streak in the water. The woman followed the streak with her eyes, and saw a huddled shape by the edge of the sea. "Look!" she cried, and began to run unevenly toward the beached figure. Her husband stumbled after her. The shape was too large for a fish, too large for a bird, and as he drew closer it struck him that the shape was too large even for a man. The creature that lay on the strand was bulky and misshapen. A heavy head with matted hair the color and texture of seaweed, an enormous chest, muscled like a man's but hairless, fingers overlong and webbed with a sticky transparency, legs strangely boneless, heavy with fanning spines rather than feet. Worst of all was the face, unconscious, bestial, with slack mouth and viscid eyes. "He is breathing," said the woman. "He is cold," said the man. The flesh was clammy and slippery, and the weight greater than they had anticipated. The creature was too heavy to be moved. The woman took off her shawl and banked it around the naked shoulders. The man looked inland toward the house. There was a path leading from the hut to the place where the boat was beached. Over the years they had walked it so that it was lower than the banks on either side. Now it was filled by a channel of rainwater. The woman's face relaxed. "We can drag him with the help of the water." The woman tore her skirt and made a large woolen sling for the body, and they dragged the giant up the path like two canal horses with a heavy load. From the path to the house they tugged and rested and tugged again, until the monster lay before the quenched fire. Then the man took 2 dry sticks and rekindled the fire, while the woman made a bed of their reed pallets and blankets and old clothes. Last of all, she stirred up a bowl of fish broth and vegetables and forced the liquid in between the lips of the stranger. "He swallows, he will live." Her husband went to the chest where he kept the things he had brought from the mainland so long ago. From it he took a bottle of wine. It was the last of a 6 bottles they had cherished for illnesses and celebrations, and the woman watched approvingly as he took his knife and broke the seal. "It will revive him," he said eagerly, and his face was full of childlike pleasure, as if the stranger from the beach were some delightful companion who must be pampered with all good things. The woman moved away from the body so that her husband might take his turn at tending the stranger, and watched as he poured away spoonful after spoonful of the precious wine. Still the monster did not awaken, but the liquid disappeared, and at last the bottle held only a tablespoon or 2 of wine. With wordless gallantry the old man passed it to his wife. The old man drank the last drop of wine and kissed his wife with the fragrance of the grapes still on his lips. It was past midnight. The 2 old people were suddenly seized with a vast drowsiness. They had thought to stay up all night with their visitor so as not to lose the moment of his awakening. They were convinced that he would not awaken until dawn. They had given their pallets to the stranger, and they had no beds, so they lay down in one another's arms and fell deep asleep. They dreamed the same dream. There was a greenish light, and all at once, with the insight of dreamers, they knew that they were under water. They saw the stranger's face, misshapen, bestial, worse than they had remembered it. Then the face changed, came into focus, and they knew that they had been looking at it the wrong way before. It was not a face to be seen through air, but through water. The great skull was noble, the tangled beard magnificent. The thatch of hair was the mane of a lion of the sea. They were looking into the face of a god, and the god spoke in a voice like thunder, in a voice like the roar of the sea.
To those who give, much will be given.
The 2 old people stood before the face like 2 children before the mouth of a cave. They held hands and wondered, but their questions would not leave their lips.
From the sea I have come, and to the sea I will return. If there is anything you desire, good souls, speak now.
The 2 old people turned and looked into one another's eyes. Then the old man spoke. "It has always seemed to us a pity that so good and fair a land as this should be unpeopled. We are old and soon shall die. If we could wish, we would wish that others should come and bear witness to the peace and beauty of this place, and that these islands should have a fair future.
A great city shall rise from these waters, and I shall lend it the power of the sea. It shall be called Serenissima, the most serene republic, and the water shall protect it and nourish it as birth waters cradle the child. I shall command Venus, my half-sister, to lend it her beauty and her name. And because you have given me wine, this city shall never lack wine. nor cause for celebration. And because you have given me food, these waters will always be stocked with fish for food and salt for trade. Because you covered me, rich cloths and shimmering fabrics will be woven here, with lace like the foam of the sea. And because you kindled a fire for me, there will be in this city a cauldron of sea sand, which will bring forth translucent and fantastical shapes in every color of the rainbow.
Will we live to see these things?
Go forth and gather pebbles where the water meets the land. Kiss each stone and return it to the water.
And in an instant they were no longer in the presence of the god, but running down to the shore as lightly as carefree children. In the silver light of the moon they gathered the stones and kissed them, and 1,000 shining circles rippled across the surface of the sea. And then they were back in their beds, still dreaming, and beheld the city, saw bridges arch like stone rainbows over the narrow canals. They saw larchwood, which crumbles in the sun, hammered deep into the muddy banks and grows strong as steel. Upon those pilings rose palaces, faced of marble and gilded with mosaics. They heard the ringing of church bells over the water, and saw masked figures gliding between the palaces in boats like black swans. Last of all, they saw the stones they had gathered, and every stone became a human soul. Wherever a stone had seated the water, there rose up a man or a woman, naked and gleaming with salt water, rejoicing in the wild abundance of the lagoon. Then the old people awakened, and the dawn was cold. They were back in the hut of wattle and daub, and the fire had burned low, and the floor was flooded with dirty water. There was nothing but a heap of cloth upon the pallet before the fire. And the man and woman looked at each other and almost wept for their loss. Then the man helped the woman to her feet, and she led him to the door and opened it. The lagoon was no longer empty. Against a mackerel sky were the sails of small boats, like the wings of white birds. On the boat stood refugees, some shabby and empty-handed, others clutching the luxuries they had saved from their mainland homes. There were women, men, and children, eyes filled with anxiety and wonder. This was the birth of Venice. She was created on the marshland, expanded pier by pier and block by block. Venice, serene and irresistible, the queen of the Adriatic, the Venus of cities, the inspiration of genius. All who enter her labyrinth fall under her spell and surrender. All who dream beneath her rooftops are cradled and lapped by the sea, from which she rose and to which she may some day return.